I'll take those back when you sign away. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Council meeting of July 6, 2016. If you could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Hope everyone had a happy, safe, wonderful, friendly 4th of July. I know I did. I know my family did. I know my friends did. I know that the thousands of people that we walked by on the parade route did, because there was lots of smiles and happiness. I definitely need to have my suit dry cleaned because I was pretty, I was pretty hot at the end of this. But it was absolutely phenomenal parade, as always. And we'll certainly talk a little bit more about that later. But if you're all familiar with the Peanuts Christmas special where the kids do their hands like this and the tree looks brand new again, that is the DPW with our downtown. It's an impressive thing that they do to move their hands around like that and make it look wonderful. And again, we will be speaking about a few more departments, including our police and fire and 4th of July committee a little bit later. This is me vamping because I wanted to get this accommodation back, because we're going to start off the meeting with accommodation. And this is for some wonderful and hard work that was done by the Bristol Recycling Committee. And if you'll allow me to read this, there's 3 of them, and they're going to go to 3 different, but the words are the same. In recognition, this is for the Bristol Recycling Committee, in recognition of the volunteers who, each in which in their own way contributed greatly to the improvement of the recycling efforts of the town of Bristol. As the duly elected representatives of the citizens of the town, we recognize and commend these participants upon their success towards an increase in recycling rates to protect our environment, achieve state recycling goals, while saving tax dollars. To list all below, we extend a heartfelt gratitude and appropriately proud community of Keith Maloney, who was the chairman, Tim Sweeney, who is the co-chairman, is also the vice chairman. That's an interesting double role there. Robert Aldridge, Brian how do I say that? Calavaro? Am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
Stan Dimick, Jen Evans, Samantha Faria, Adriana Ferns, Eric Hasselhurst, Stephen Katz, Susan Maloney, Vladimir Popov. Did I say that one right too? Yep. Yes. Yep. Well, that was. It looks different, but Michael. Say Michael's last name for me. Tumalantes. We're going to ask Tim to read the rest of this. Antonio Texera, Ethan Tucker, Paul Wheeler, and Camille Texera. We also recognize the following for their guidance, cooperation, and contribution to the effort, which was the Department of Public Works, Kevin McBride, who's the director, and Peter Morin. Rhode Island Resource Recovery, and who's Crystal Noyes, Kristen Littlefield, and Sarah Kite. And that's signed by the administrator, Tony Texera, myself, Nathan Coluro, Tim Sweeney, Mary Perella, Edward Stewart, Halsey Herreshoff, and Lou Chirillo. So if we could get a round of applause for them. And Keith, if you could come up so I could give this to you. Come on up. Come on up, Keith. I'd like to give this to you.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Good work. Thanks.
Eddie, Mary, thank you.
So Tim, was you the one that got the recycling man behind us in the parade, or was that like planned like that?
Perfect. Yeah. Cannot tell a lie, but I did. No, but it was perfect.
Mr. Clerk.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, the first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is submission of minutes of June 15th.
Move we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item was to be a public hearing regarding an expansion of a Class BV liquor license. The petitioner has withdrawn the petition, so that would be a receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the second reading of ordinance number 2016-10. This is for to rename the section to establish certain fees and charges for fire department services. Second reading.
Move second reading and passage of the ordinance.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question. I just want, it's not really a question, just another reassurance. This is pretty much as we do with the rescue. Like, this is not anytime anybody has an accident, but this is for certain occasions when things get called out and it's for special, some type of special duty, whatever, but no one will ever be charged.
Correct. There should be
And the
no-
town
no
will
ex-
never go after the money, like if their insurance covers it or whatever, but no citizen will ever be liable for this. Is that correct?
No charges above what they pay in taxes.
Right, okay, very good, thank you.
Is there any other questions? No. Okay, so we have a motion and second to pass. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is a companion ordinance to add a certain additional fee to the comprehensive schedule of fees for Fire and Rescue Department.
Make a motion to approve and adopt the second reading.
Second.
Lou, just a general question. This says expires May 31st. Presumably that's in 2017? That's the top of the request document.
I got to take a look. C2.
I think we do, as a matter of policy, want to have a chance to review these at some point, but I don't have any problem when that is.
So, Halsey, could you help us
Where
with...
exactly?
Yeah.
Is this on item C2, Halsey?
Look at C1.
For the second reading of C2, this is the
I'm not talking about
chapter 11.
this one. Oh,
Oh, down at the bottom
I'm
of
one
the,
ahead, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
No, I'm sorry. I'm one ahead, that's right.
okay.
he's one ahead.
Oh, one ahead, okay.
Halsey's particularly motivated this evening, and we appreciate that. So,
We'll get that on.
No problem.
Nothing wrong with moving it along, that's for sure.
absolutely not. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, the second one, the next item is item D1, and this is a request for sidewalk use license for CNR Mercantile, 219 High Street. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Code Compliance Coordinator, and Chief of Police, all to approve.
So I think this one's fine, but I just asked that question about, are these forever, or are they expires May 31st, 2017? or
Well,
what?
as with most licenses, they're for a one-year period, and then the council has the option to renew them. We'll, sometime during the month of May, perhaps the end of April, we'll present the council with the opportunity to review and to approve them for renewal.
What will you do then? Bring a list of them all and have a chance for the council to pull one out if they wish to?
Ordinarily, that's what it is. You will have a list of recommendations, similarly to what you have now, except that it may lump them all together if there's one that works better than others or less as well as others. It might be a recommendation not to approve it. Traditionally, once approved, these tend to be renewed every year, unless the petitioner decides they don't want to do that anymore.
So the logical question following that, since we have so many of these and they're coming out of the woodwork all the time, I assume, Mr. Solo, that if the police or some of the council are notified of some problems, that we have the authority to cancel one at any time, don't we?
Absolutely. Every license that the council issues is subject to revocation for failure to abide by all the applicable regs.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for a sidewalk use license based on the stated recommendations to approve.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion?
Is the applicant here?
I figured we had her up next, and But go ahead, please.
No, I just want to say it's going to be a grocery store. Can you expand on that?
This is your opportunity for a 30-second commercial. Please come on up.
Come on up, yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
Please state your name for the record, too.
My name is Denise Niehez, owner of CNR Mercantile, 219 High Street. I'm every day like farmer's market, fresh produce. I'm not going to be a butcher, but I'm just going to have last-minute things open 9 to 7 every day for dinner items. I have things geared toward the kids, too, all natural products and produce and everything. So.
I think that's great. I wish you well. I remember many years ago we had a similar but probably larger scale one on High Street. So it's good downtown that you're bringing something like this to the town and that area. So, and especially you want to beautify it with these planters. So.
Yeah. I can say I've been in, and it's a beautiful, beautiful store, and the products are great. So I think you're going to do very well.
Yeah, thank you. It's been well received so far, so it's been great. And 2 weeks tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
Good luck.
So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And similarly, Mr. Chairman and the members of the Town Council, item D2, same petitioner requests the opportunity to have a holiday sales license, and you have the recommendations provided by Town Administrator, Fire Chief, and Chief of Police all to approve.
With all the recommendations, state statutes, and ordinances, I make a motion that we approve.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Did you miss anything on your last commercial? You wanted to come back around? No? Okay. So a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is the petition of Statesman Tavern, 31 State Street, request opportunity for sidewalk use license. You have recommendations from the Town Administrator and Chief of Police to approve with certain conditions, from the Code Compliance Coordinator to approve, and Director of Public Works to also approve with certain conditions.
So I'd like to share a little bit I know that the applicant is here. I went down with the Code Compliance Officer and Diane, the Director of Community Development, this afternoon around 5 o'clock. And in looking in this prior to going down there, I was informed that the initial application that was here had tables on both the left and the right-hand side of the access door, or the front door to the facility. But on the right-hand side, it actually, if we had a table there, or if the applicant had a table there, I should say, it would actually be in violation of our current ordinance, which suggests, or doesn't suggest, it states it must be at least 9 feet. So after some maybe 2 minutes of conversation, it was quickly found out that both tables could go on the left-hand side of the front door, and there was more than enough access space for both ADA compliance and then, of course, keeping in line with our current ordinance. So this, as it was put to us, would be in violation of the ordinance, but the adjustment would be fine with our current ordinance, which allows for more than enough access for people to walk by with no obstruction on there. So I think that was a nice synopsis. Sam, did you want to add anything to that, or is that... You nailed it. Okay, all right.
So with that said, Mr. Chairman, when we face the Statesman Tavern, I would say that we can approve the areas that were specified by your testimony, just stated to the right of the building, where the tables will occupy the space with the plenty of footage in accordance to the measurements that were taking place, and not to the left where there is a tree.
It's actually the opposite.
Right.
So closer to... I think the best way to explain it would be closer to Thames
I'm
Street.
facing, yes, so the tree is on the right, so I correct that, Lou, to the left. We can have the tables as pertaining to the original application, where it was subject to put a table to the right. That will no longer be part of this motion.
Correct.
Well, I'd just like to say, Mr. Chairman, I think it's very good that these dimensions get checked the way you did this evening. It's interesting that so many requests are coming in for this sidewalk dining. We're getting to look like Paris, which is fine. But I think we have to be careful that the requirements of our quite precise in sensible ordinance are adhered to, because there's a tendency, once the sidewalk dining begins, to slide a little further from the building, and perhaps in that case there may be some violation of the dimensional ordinance, and I think it's very important to keep good track of that so that this all works as well as we intend.
I agree with that.
Well, I've been in the, Sam, I've been into your establishment quite a few times, and since you've opened, you're doing a great job, by the way. I really enjoy coming into your establishment. So with that said, I'd like to make a...
So you have a second. We just need a second.
Oh,
Yeah.
second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, whose motion was it?
Ed,
I'm
Yep.
sorry I missed that.
is there any other discussion? I didn't
It was
mean
all
to cut
about
you
the
off.
right and the left, I think.
Yeah, it's about all.
There's a lot right and left I was talking
May I
about.
make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
That you make the granting of this contingent upon the receipt of a new diagram?
Excellent idea.
So moved.
Second?
So that was an adjustment to that motion, just with a new diagram on there. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, similarly, the same petitioner requests a temporary seasonal expansion of the existing liquor license to include that area previously approved.
Now that we covered the dimensions, and you will have the tables, I make a motion that we grant upon all the recommendations and state statutes and ordinances pertaining to this, and by everything set forth, that the applicant be granted this request.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And also, not to make it any less complicated, there is now a request for a sidewalk alcohol service license, and you have the various recommendations provided.
Abiding that, according to our ordinances, all the guidelines and regulations that you're well aware of, and all the approvals by the departments and the administration and the police, make a motion that we grant the sidewalk alcohol service license.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I think this is
I'll explain the next one.
I think it's the type of request we've got to keep a careful watch on, because we don't want this to become too permissive of people standing around and having drinks all over the place there. So, in my view, the previous ones are fine. This one we got to be careful about.
Well, don't they have to have like a roped-in area and like a hostess outside and all that stuff?
It's
if you're
all
gonna
per
serve out there?
that
Right,
ordinance.
those-
It has
right, so-
it has those requirements.
Right, yeah.
Look like everybody else's.
We'd be happy to know that.
Petitioner knows all that, right?
I spoke, as we've all talked about, I spoke with the applicant a little bit earlier, and he was well aware of that already. So we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay,
Thank you.
The next one bears just a tiny bit of explanation, okay? What has been our most recent practice is that for the sidewalk alcohol expansion of premises, we have been treating them as a temporary seasonal expansion. By virtue of just its terminology, it has no permanence. Okay, it's temporary. There is a period of time when it's allowed, and then it basically dies at the end of the season. And there's a sort of a practical problem with that, in that I think that what happens is that the individual establishment sort of expects that it's going to be theirs going into the future. So what we are doing in this case is, this is sort of the first time that we're doing this, is that the expansion of premises that you approved before was to take care of the next few weeks. And then there is a request for a public hearing which would allow for a more permanent expansion of premises. So basically, the liquor license going into the future would be covering the entire area, and then when the liquor license is renewed, then it would also include that area. But in order to accomplish that, we have to go through the public hearing process and have the public weigh in on it. The other thing that sort of came to mind is that, we never know exactly how our weather is going to be. And I did have this discussion with Mr. Glynn. Let's just say it's one of those odd winter days when it's 65 degrees and he wants to put a table outside. It can happen. Well, under the old arrangement, that was impossible. Okay, this would allow him the flexibility to be able to enjoy that weather if he wishes to do so, and there wouldn't have to be a need to come back to you and ask for permission when it probably wouldn't be at all practical to do so. So with all of these that have been granted this, as a matter of process, I think we're going to go forward with renewing them at the public hearing time with public hearings on the entire area and not just the interior part. And the council can choose at that time, if it wishes to allow that extra area to be in place. But I think the applicant would have more of a reasonable assurance that it would be that way going forward and not starting fresh.
That's got a lot of logic.
What about the people that, are they just grandfathered in, or are you
Well,
going to try to
that's
lump
a-
them all together
when-
and do a hearing on all of the
When we
others
do
together?
the renewals, it's not practical to drag them back in.
Right.
They were sort of given the impression, as we were, that it had a permanence to it. But if you think about just the way that it, by virtue of what it's called, it is, because it's temporary and it's seasonal, you'd have to approve it every year.
You can catch up with the others in November.
In November, we'll catch up with the others, and
No,
then...
I mean now, I mean at some
Yeah.
point, can we put them
In
all
November.
together
No,
in like
but I think
a...
they're okay now. We're not denying them.
No, I know, I understand that.
yeah.
I'm just asking, can they all be put together into one meeting? We don't have to do each one individually, right? Can we put them all together?
Oh, yeah, the same way when you renew.
Okay.
When you renew it, it's always based upon the floor plan. So the floor plan will include,
But we don't have a public hearing when we do the renewals.
yes, you do.
Yeah, we
We
do.
do?
We do an advertisement.
Okay.
We list them all in the paper.
Okay.
You know why? Because it's just pro
Oh, right,
forma.
right.
There usually isn't any reason to have nobody testifies.
Thank you for explaining that.
Okay, so the motion would be to call for the public hearing on July 27th.
So moved.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second to call for public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a request of Louis Fraterelli, the chairman of the Bristol Harbor Festival Committee, requesting permission to sell beer and wine at the annual Harbor Festival, August 13th, 2016. You have the recommendations provided by the town administrator, the fire chief, the chief of police, and there is a supplemental information provided by the Parks and Recreation Director on the facility use approvals.
Well, this is a great event, so
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening.
put tickets.
Good evening.
Councilman Burrell is correct. It is a great event. Would you?
Yeah.
You have 30 seconds for a wonderful commercial. Hit it.
We had a good year last year, and I think we're going to have even more people this year, more boats. The numbers have grown every year, so it's getting better and better.
That's a great commercial. I'll take that.
Well, you need to give the date. If you really
August
have a
13th.
commercial, you need to give the date and what you're having and where you can get tickets for your clam, your clam boil.
Well, it's
Mary, I
August.
got your ticket. I got your ticket.
Oh, I know, he needs to just tell the public. I'm sure we can all figure out the tickets. He needs to tell on the
Well,
commercial the
everybody can
public.
get their tickets at the new Maritime Center,
Okay.
so they can go down and enjoy that too.
And the date is when?
August 13th,
And the time?
And the time?
noontime. It's kickoff.
Noontime till approximately...
The last meal is at 6:30,
Right.
so it'll be probably that'll get down to 8 o'clock.
So noontime to 8.
So you have the Blessing of the Fleet at noon. You have a
Yes.
stuffy competition. You have cardboard boat race.
Yes.
And then a restaurant stuffy competition, and then a Little Neck Boil, seating 1 and seating 2 at 6:30, right? 1 at 4:30, 1 at 6:30.
Yes.
Tickets are $30.
20.
20? Oh, I think that's, okay.
Louis, I think
20,
Mary
even
is
better.
vying for president or chairman of this, so she's,
Upping the price
you
already.
Good commercial.
you may want to watch your back on that one. She seems to got this covered, so.
And he wanted to be a stuffy judge, but I never got asked that.
Mr.
Maybe this year.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Harbor Festival on August 13th, 2016, based on the recommendations as stated on the agenda. To approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck.
Thank you very
And
much.
enjoy.
Hope to
Job,
see you
Lou.
all there.
We would
Thank you for your
All right,
efforts.
look forward to it.
Thanks, Lou.
The,
In a few words.
the next item is the petition of Clara Reed, 11 Noyes Avenue, requests council consideration to change the speed limit on Noyes Avenue to 20 miles per hour. I believe there is a late item recommendation that was provided by the Director of Public Works. It basically says that the ordinance would have to be amended to allow for this.
Yeah, his words were, I see no reason to change the speed limit on Noyes Avenue, which would require a change in the, I see no reason to change the speed limit on Noyes Avenue, which would require a change to the current ordinance.
Right.
Okay. Chief, did you want to speak to this?
I think we're all familiar with Noyes Avenue. I can't recall ever having someone stop there for speeding. We received this, as you know, it's a busy time of the year for us, but my recommendation is if we could table it for for a couple of weeks till the next council meeting, and I'd like to have someone go down there and speak to the petitioner, get a time when she's observing and noticing these vehicles that may be speeding, and let's try to identify who they are, maybe a just little chat with the individual or two, because as you know, this is not a throughway. Anyone that's going on that road, I tend to believe either lives there or has to be visiting someone there. It's not a long road. There's really no reason to use that road besides, as I said, unless you're visiting someone or you live there. So if it is an issue with speeding, I'm not a betting person, but I can assure you that we're going to identify who the person or persons are, and maybe a little chat may resolve the problem. If it doesn't, then we can look at possibly modifying the ordinance and then addressing it that way. But if you give us a little bit of time, we'd be more than glad to look into it.
Chief, what is the speed limit there now?
The speed limit, it's 20 miles an hour.
25.
25, I'm sorry. They want to amend it to 20, I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to move on the recommendation of the police chief that we continue this matter till July 27 to allow for study of the situation.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
It doesn't belong in there. It was a mistake. Okay, some of you may have an F3 in the agenda, and it was actually put in there a little prematurely. It's actually for next time. Okay. The next item is item G1. This is for public service appointments. The Christmas Festival Committee, you have the application of Lauren Glynn of 20 Maple Street in Warren, who is interested in appointment.
Any relation? No? Okay, all right. Just checking.
To make a motion that we accept Mrs. Glynn and forward her name to the Christmas Festival Committee.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is Zoning Board of Review. This is for the alternate position to fill an unexpired term, which will expire in March of 2017. You have the application of Donald Kern of 32 Defiance Avenue, who has interest in the appointment.
Make a motion to schedule an interview for Mr. Donald Kern for the Zoning Board alternate position.
Second? Yeah, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And finally, you have the CRMC alternate position. This is to fill an unexpired term to expire in January 2017, and you have current member of the Harbor Commission, John Traiano, who requests council consideration for appointment.
Also make a motion for an interview for Mr. Traiano for this said position, the CRMC alternate.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is the part where I say every single time, This council appreciates the volunteers that are on our boards and commissions. We appreciate the time that you take away from your family to give back to the town of Bristol, and it makes a tremendous difference. Our boards and commissions are speaking the language that we ask them to, and they represent us directly. So we very much appreciate what you do, what you say, and how you represent us. Thank you.
Yeah, well said.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, from the solicitor, this regards the lease of the property that abuts the Guido's Shellfish and Restaurant, and this was continued from your June 15th meeting.
As you are aware, this has been before you on several occasions. I'm happy to report to you this evening that the parties are now all in full agreement. Most importantly, since your last meeting, the requirement that the dock be removed has in fact been removed. Okay. So we're able to move forward with the lease. You have a red line version in front of you. I'll just briefly tell you that the references to the dock have all been eliminated on page 2. Additionally, instead of it starting off as a 10-year lease, it's going to be a 5-year lease with an option to renew for 5 years. So that language has been changed. And finally, for the first 5 years, the increase in rent every year, instead of being 3%, is 2.5%. As I said, the terms of the lease that are before you, as have been amended, have been approved by the administration and Mr. Guido. I'm authorized to tell you by his attorney that he is prepared to sign this lease if the council sees fit to approve it this evening.
Well, I think it's a very good thing that this has worked out as agreeably as it has, because in the beginning it seemed like that was a challenge. And I congratulate you, Mr. Sello, to bring that about, and I feel that it's a fair agreement and one that we should approve of, and therefore I would move that the council accept the agreement as now revised.
I'll second Halsey's motion. I'd just like to say we were concerned about the dock, and I'm glad that got resolved, so that was great. So nice job to you, Tony, and Mike, for getting this together.
Any other discussion?
Can we just add to his motion that the administrator is authorized to sign?
I'll add that to the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll send
Thank
the
you.
revised one clean.
Thank you. The next matter was continued from June 15th. This has to do with the petition of Stephen Brigidi regarding the sewer use fee billing. You have a recommendation provided by the tax assessor, collector, and town administrator to deny.
I'd like to shed a little bit more light on this particular agenda item. I did speak with Stephen while he was here a little bit earlier, but I came in and I spoke with with Chris Belair, our tax assessor, and spoke a little, and I think we all had this dialogue a little at our last meeting, which was, why was there a change? What was he actually looking for? And although he certainly was looking for the tenant to be billed and not the property owner, I think more specifically, or maybe at least 50% of it, was to get the clarity that he had in the past. So after speaking with Chris, I asked her, and she was absolutely amenable to share the information that Stephen was looking for with a breakdown, and that was more than amenable. He was absolutely fine with that, and Chris committed to having that information for Steve, the applicant, by the 15th of July. So he was very happy about it, and I'm glad that Chris was amenable to that.
Well, then, would a motion to receive and file this be appropriate solution?
Sounds good to me.
Clerk's fine with that, so we have a motion to receive and file. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from the Council Vice Chairman Sweeney regarding the Byfield School capital improvements update, and this was continued from June 15th also.
So, Lou, would it be appropriate to kind of maybe combine J1 with this? Because this is
About the same thing.
part of the same thing, which
We
is
sure
the bid. Why don't
Which is the question.
Can we have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we received a bid today, and
We did receive a bid, and, okay, it is from This has to do with bid number 848. This is for the repair, the framing, and trim and install copper gutters and flashing Byfield School. And there was one bid received from Cadiros Construction Incorporated of Bristol for the south side only, $63,900, and for the full perimeter of the building, if the town were to wish to go that route, it would be $191,500.
And this would, is there any issues with leaking as far as the roof goes too, or is this just the flashing?
It would be the flashing and also some additional, some slate
soften,
work,
sorry,
yes.
yeah.
There is some slate work that needs to be done along the way there.
So it includes
because
that?
you're going to have to remove it to redo, to do the woodwork, and then put back the slate. So that would need to be done. Plus, this includes carpentry. What you're looking at, the 63, it's total. It includes painting, carpentry, removal of the slate, reestablish the slate, and do the copper gutter.
I'm going to recuse myself. The Cadero Construction is actually my cousin.
Oh.
So however this works out, I'm going to back out over here. Thank you.
But Tony, most likely, once they start peeling it back, it could be a lot more from that, because you never, you're...
There is some possibility that could happen, but they pretty much aware of the work that needs to be done. They actually the ones that did the work here at Burnside Building, and they did an excellent job here.
Okay.
And they're very much aware that you can always have a few hiccups along the way. But I don't think there would be any additional cost. I don't foresee that.
Is there any reason why we should go for the $191,000 one?
Well,
the full.
If you take the 63 times 4, okay.
It's a lot less expensive to do it
Exactly,
altogether,
because
I think.
basically the cost here is to actually the staging. That is not cheap to put up all the staging that's necessary to do the work there.
Is the rest of the soffit around? I mean, is that in decent shape? Is that a pretty...
It could use the work.
Okay.
We looked at it, and it's just a matter of time before we'll be back and having this type of conversation for, at least for two of the other sides.
Oh, wow. All right.
Well, Tony, what material were the gutters originally on that building? Were they copper?
The material right now, the gutters are copper. The downspouts, we have a combination of, we have some copper, a mix of copper, not a whole lot, but we have the PVC. If you look at it to the corner, the south end, there you can see it, okay. Actually, two sides have it, and there's some cast iron as well. So there is a mix of all four sides.
The copper gutters just installed on the library are very handsome, and they look great. But that is the most expensive material to use. Is this a building that's in the historic zone where they would have a say on that?
Diane can elaborate a little bit more on that, but yes, it is.
Is the copper requirement of the Historic Commission? Well, maybe we don't know.
Well, Richard and I also feel strongly that the copper is a better solution because it has a lot of longevity. It will last a long time. And the Historic District Commission does like to see restoration of what was existing. Copper was original. So I actually am going in front of them tomorrow night to present the application for the approval of this work. So I don't actually know what they will vote, but my sense is that they'll want the copper.
Well, copper does last a long time. I know that because there are copper gutters on the house that I inherited, and it's lasted as long as me, and that's quite a while.
Well, we've seen that at the library. That's precisely the same situation there. And the folks are sure that you get at least a good 40, 45 years, if not longer. But as you already pointed out, it seems like it may last a lot longer than that.
Thank you for the compliment. I've made at least 45 years. Yeah.
Well, I understand we're talking about Byfield School. here on the Common, and when we talk about historical, those schools, whether it be Wally, Oliver, Reynolds, or Byfield, is just landmarks here in the town, and being on the center of our town. I think when we do cost, we talk about this, when you do shortcuts, I think to the character of these type of buildings, we have to be careful on how we preserve them for long-term use. Also being mindful of how we're spending the money, but I think giving this type of building, get the job done. I mean, we always say, though, I see there's just one bid. I know on more larger scale projects of millions of dollars, we usually re-advertise, but it is comforting to know that another historical building, this contractor has, a track record with the Burnside, so he will be involved with knowing the aspects that might unfold before him to keep that characteristic of a type of building, whether it be the slate or pointing of a building. So I feel that we're going to refer to the administrator to work in the best interest of the town. I think amongst our colleagues, I think we should come to a conclusion if we're going to do one or the other, whether it be the south side or full perimeter. I think my question would be, which account would come, I know Julie's not here, for the funds giving which way we go?
Public Buildings account.
And Tony, there's no grants or Byfield fund that some of these schools have that are available?
We've gone down that road.
Okay. All right.
Actually, Diane did put in for a grant, and, we did not receive that grant. I'm not going to say we were not denied, we just did not receive it. It just, they didn't see fit, that there was the appropriate building for that type of funding.
On top of that, we got long-term tenants, and the safety is paramount that we keep talking about. I would be in full support of doing the job right and doing the whole job at once. That way, there's no shortcuts. So I look for the full perimeter.
And as I pointed out, it's Mr. Hershoff points out quite often, you can always go back, since it's only one, go back and sharpen the pencils. And we're going to hear that a little bit later about a different contractor. So we certainly, it's not the final note here.
The only thing I would say that if you multiply the 63,000 by 3, you get 189, and he's asking for 191. Usually when you do 3 things in the same site, you can get the price down a bit.
You're talking about 4 sides, not 3 sides.
Oh, 4 sides, okay.
Yes.
Well, then I take that back. Okay.
Right. So you're looking at a larger number, much larger number if you times 4.
Well, you're saving about 60,000 on that basis. Yeah.
I'll get up and leave now if that was my math, Halsey.
Well, I move that we refer this to the town administrator, and is there another department that we should do this to?
Yes, it would be
And community
Diane. It would be
development,
the building inspector and Diane. The 3 of us have been very involved in
To
the
act in the
process.
best interest of the town in this project.
You
I'll
want to
second
make
the
part
motion.
of that motion that it's for all 4
For
sides?
All four sides.
I thought that's what I said. I was in
was your
favor of the
motion?
full perimeter, and that was referring to the administrator, but
Yeah, I have that down as your motion.
Oh, okay, all
You
right.
have a
I didn't
second.
catch that as the motion. It's
Chairman
commenting.
the acting chair made a motion. All in favor?
Oh,
That's
Tim,
you,
that's
Tim.
Tim.
That's Tim.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay.
Discussion.
Let's do it. Done. Come on back.
All righty. The next item is the continuation of the discussion on the Constitution Street Pumping Station and Silver Creek Pumping Station. This is bid number 846. This was first discussed on June 15th.
Oh, was there?
Jose and obviously Tony.
Jose, speak to that.
I know that there was multiple questions about the appropriateness of using one bid. In fact, we were just discussing that prior. This was quite a significant dollar figure, and Councilman Herreshoff brought that, kind of spoke to all of our concerns. This is a bid that came back at $2.575 million, but it was brought to our attention that this particular engineering corporation, in this instance it was Hart, seems to have the market cornered on this. But Jose, this is brought back around to give us some more clarity on it and potentially a better dollar figure to come up
Yes,
with.
we've reached out to Hart Corporation, and we've been in correspondence back and forth. We got a letter July 1st, and we need to review it with the administrator. We have reduced that price down to just a shortfall of $83,000. But we would like to discuss, we reduce it from 2.5 to roughly 2.1.
So, do you need another 3 weeks to?
Yes.
Okay. Because, boy, that sounded really good at the 83,000 and not the 2.5, so, okay, it's all right. So can we have a motion to continue this to our next meeting?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to continue this to our next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
So the motive is to get it at a lower price every meeting?
We'll get down to 83,000 quickly, so maybe another 5 meetings or so.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the correspondence from Anthony Barrow, the managing principal of E2SOL LLC, request council consideration for approval of property assessed clean energy program, PACE, in Bristol.
This item needs to be continued. There isn't enough information for the council to make an informed decision, including the copy of the resolution. So could we have a motion to continue this to our next meeting?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item I2, from the Director of Community Development regarding the tourism budget policy.
Hi, Diane. Talk to us, Diane.
Okay. So we have submitted to you a written version of the policy that we discussed at the last meeting, and I presented a memo. Actually, Jessica and I presented a memo, and if you look on the first page, the top paragraph, it sets out what our policy would be. And the one additional thing that we didn't talk about last time that we are recommending is that, so I guess I'll start at the beginning and then I'll highlight the change. You've set aside $25,000 from the FY 2017 budget for the purpose of tourism and promotion in Bristol. The funds will be administered by the Department of Community Development in consultation with the newly formed Town Tourism Partnership, which, if you recall, came out of the June 2nd Tourism Vision Workshop that we did. So the partnership will meet quarterly or more often on an as-needed basis to report on visitor and tourism-related activities. And we identified some project elements, vision elements that we're hoping the project ideas will further the tourism vision and will be considered for funding from the tourism and promotion budget. And the partnership will propose and recommend projects for funding. The final allocation of the funds will be determined by the Department of Community Development staff, Jessica and myself. And then this was the proposal that we added to the policy, which we think makes good sense and will be good for us to control the money a little bit better. Any proposals in excess of $10,000 will be put to the Town Council for a vote on the final allocation of funds based on the suitability, again, of the project to the tourism vision. We'll provide spending reports with our quarterly staff reports that will include how much funding was spent during the quarter, what projects were funded, and what related successes and metrics to measure the impacts of each project. So that's what our policy will be for disbursement of those funds.
I particularly like the in excess of 10,000 coming back to us.
Okay.
Seems quite appropriate.
We thought that was a good idea, too.
Speaking of coming back to us, here we are, July 6th. July 1st is the state budget, and I know there was disbursement to municipality councils of tourism. I believe that would probably go to Discover Newport, which we have an investment in.
Yes.
And then they would have the disbursement to each of the municipalities that are part of that? How is that going to, how are we going to know our take on top of the 25,000? I'm concerned for Bristol of our take that was dispersed from the state. So I'm sure that will be coming up in their discussion, and you can report back to us what's coming to the town of Bristol on
We
top.
absolutely will, and they have in my opinion, a pretty robust marketing plan. They do a lot of brochures, a lot of articles, a lot of that, and so I'd be happy to get them to give you a report or come and make a presentation.
But we don't get money from it. We're not getting an allocation. It goes to
No.
those tourism boards, and they
Correct.
will just do more for Bristol.
Correct.
Exactly, but
Right. And what it is. You
that
want-
is associated with a cost, so I want the Bristolians to know that's our buy-in.
Right.
So since the state, gave more money to that sector,
Yes, it did.
I believe that we have something to gain from that on top of our initiative here, so.
Yes.
Well, Diane, with all respect, I have trouble with this approach. I think it's almost too comprehensive. One of the troubles is that $25,000 is not very much money when you want to improve things in this area. And I don't see why this, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me this is being set up as a kind of a fund that can be used to put out a fire or to maybe light the particular fire that is revealed to be necessary. But I don't think that's a good way to do business. I think that a better way would be to decide in the spring at budget time what our objectives are, and of the various things we could do, which ones we should do. We can't do them all, because if we try to do them all, we'll get nothing, because none of them will be done well. I don't see why the planning in this area can't be managed much the way all our other planning is, that when we look at it in the spring and decide what we want to do, we allocate then. For example, I've been hearing, I don't know whether the others have or not, I've been hearing a lot of people say they wish we still had the visitor center, and I rather feel that we should, but I think maybe it needs to be set up in a way that costs very little, which could be done maybe with one visitor center leader and a lot of volunteers. But I guess my main plea is that instead of this being sort of a ad hoc fill in the blanks through this year, I think it ought to be planned carefully in the spring and the money dedicated in the spring to the particular areas. Just a suggestion.
But I just, I haven't discussed this with Halsey, but I have almost the exact same thought about it. I mean, I may have expressed this to some degree at the last meeting. I think it comes across, I used the word labor intensive when I read it, but I think some of the things like monitoring, bringing the groups together, things like that are fine. I mean, we're talking about such a tiny amount of money, and then you're breaking down even further into $10,000, if it comes back to the council. You might make a recommendation for $25,000, whatever. I think we need to do, just as Halsey said, we need to figure out what we want to do and allocate the money. So right along this year, I felt we should have had the hearing and all the work done during the budget process, that, and then continued if we wanted to have the visioning thing afterwards, that would be fine. But, my understanding is that the groups had kind of worked out how they could work together anyway. I mean, I just don't feel that we need to have this approach that, it's almost like you're going to make this decision, but yet you're not going to make the decision because it's still going to come back to us. Because what can you really, what are people going to really do outside that's going to be under 10? I'll tell you what they're going to be. They're going to be these small little, they're going to be little projects of, like, other events, you know what I mean, that the town is going to help support, which we probably would support anyway, in which we do support through closing the roads, through our DPW, through police department, fire department. So I'm not sure, like, where are we going to get the big bang for the buck in terms of, whether it's promotional materials and a PR firm, whether it's the visitor center. I think this quarterly meeting of these groups to come together to discuss all this stuff is a fine idea, but I just think I don't think this is the right direction. So I don't actually support, and it's not so much what you've written as much as at the concept. I just don't support this need. I just think it should have been a budget item, and we have this advisory group that is working during the year to help us with those decisions. And I will say, as I think we spoke about at the meeting, the visioning meeting, I do personally think that this money needs to be increased. So my personal view is that $25,000 is too small of an amount, and perhaps if it gets to be a larger fund, then what you have here, the concept, would be an appropriate concept at that point. I just don't think it's the appropriate concept for $25,000.
I think...
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Vice Chairman. You go first.
Thank you. I tend to agree with Halsey and Mary on certain parts. My biggest thing is whether we lower the amount or increase to 25,000. I think the biggest thing the group's going to need to do is do some deep down, dirty analytics and to find out what are and where do we need to spend the money. Does it make sense to open the visitor center? But if the numbers aren't there, then it doesn't make sense to do that. So I guess my question is to you: how are you going to? Who is going to be on the group? What's going to be the makeup of the group? And are you going to meet more often to kind of get these analytics and numbers together? So when you do come back to us, we have kind of a clear direction. Because I think that's been lacking because not all the groups have been really talking to one another and they've been going off on different tracks. It's well, that's my 2 cents.
And that's I think what was the impetus for the June 2nd workshop, is to try to get everybody back in the room and have a town vision for the tourism. And so the meetings would include the folks at the workshop, the Chamber, BMA, Explore Bristol, and the Destination Newport. The idea is sort of, as you've all said, there's a lot happening, and there's a lot that these groups are doing. And I think the first thing we're going to try to do is have all of the groups tell us what they're already doing, what more needs to be done, again, aligning with the vision.
Okay.
And then where do we need funds, or are there other resources? Are there other groups that or is the state agency available to tap into for any of this? We feel that there is a lot of, we don't want to use the word collaboration all the time, but there can be a real good partnership. And I was kind of excited to hear when we met with the Newport tourism group that they're doing a lot. And I don't think that people might realize all the things that they are doing in partnership with all of the things that the other groups are doing. So I think we felt that we really need to kind of zoom back out again, see where all the groups are working, what they're doing. Again, where are the gaps? What needs to be done? Where can this money go to be, what are the priorities? Looking at what's being done, what needs to be done, and where we might need funding. And that's really where we need to go, because I think that there's a lot of different opportunities, but we're considering everything at this point.
Right, but you're not going to be able to do that without having that analytic data.
Oh, thank you.
Do you know what I mean? As far as, where, if people go into the Bristol Town website, where are they going? Where are we getting the most hits? Discover Newport, or what are the numbers at Blythewall? What are the numbers at Linden Place? What are people asking for? Because I think that's the only way you're going to create that vision and be able to drive the rest of it. But
yeah, I had forgotten that you asked that second part. So the other thing we have talked to Newport about is the possibility of getting some real good analytics. One of the things that they do is they can get credit card spending data based on zip code. And they've done a lot of research to try to figure out where people are spending their money in Newport. They're going to try to see if they can get the same data for Bristol. It might not be as easy. It might be a county-wide data, but we're going to work on that. And so we're hoping to get much better data to present back when we need, to come back for the budget.
Great.
So I would like to thank you, because we had many, many discussions throughout many budgets to get to this point, to come up with analytics, to bring the groups to finally bring the groups together, and make that change versus how we used to allocate it. If we're going to go down the road, I keep hearing about the concerns of this year. Well, I think we can address it. You just have to ask. And it is a line item. There's $25,000 that can be spent at this time. And I believe you shouldn't stop the branding or the marketing for our town and that momentum. So with that said, if there is an idea of the visitor center, or if we want to continue with the marketing of Lou Hammond with Explore Bristol, or support the events of BMA, that these are all the players involved going forward until next spring for budget time, why don't you formulate from your department that if we should spend this money now to keep the momentum going, and spend it, just like we would have done at budget time. But what's in front of us now is going to bring the groups together going towards the budget season, where, as you said, you feel there should be more money. Well, when these groups come together, we can formulate something to see where we have to go in the future for our tourism and our branding as a town. And at that point, with the reports throughout the year from this group in community development, At budget time, they will present through the administrator what they're going to request through the community development for tourism for the town of Bristol, and we will be addressing it in the same fashion, but in a more reformed way and more accountable and transparent way, where I think this is the right step, and we're going forward with that.
Can I just ask one more question, though? I mean, see, I don't disagree with what Ed has said, or do I disagree with the first part of the first paragraph? Because they need to come together. So your job, Jessica works for you, this is part of her job. So I guess my question is, and I know some people on the council like this, why come back to the council if it's in excess of $10,000? Because here's the thing, you have a budget item of $25,000. Your premise is that you're bringing these people together to identify the need, and you're going to get consensus on where this money needs to be spent. So it's like we've given it to your department to do, but now you're giving it back to us to have this discussion all over again, because we may not agree that that's where it needs to go. So that's the part I don't understand. If you're going to bring all these people together to form this consensus in a direction, then why is it that you're putting a limit that it comes back to us? I disagree with that.
I'm going to give Diane a pass on this one, because that came from our end of things. And here's why, is that it was discussed after all of this dialogue that this council spent an inordinate amount of time, in a positive sense, but we spent a lot of time on this, and it was felt appropriate that if it was a significant dollar, as it has in the past, that we should have oversight on that. But if you believe, and I shouldn't say that, I should say if this council believes that that particular item isn't necessary, that's okay. It was to give us oversight. So I'm going to, again, I'm giving Diane a pass because she didn't ask for that. That was from the conversations that you and I had and others. So, and Tony, thank you. But it seemed appropriate because of the amount of time that we spent on it. But if this council sees otherwise, I certainly don't have any objection to it.
I think if we're going to give them a job to do, we should give them the job to do. And then at the budget time, we go back and make a determination if we think they did the job or they didn't do the job.
I have no objection.
Well, to your point, even with that, on the quarterly reports, I think we could convey our, when they say, well, we're thinking about this or we're spending this, I think this council can be very vocal at that time, to your point, to address, give them the room, and then still have our position as you're concerned, and we can address it that way.
Because otherwise, you're going to come in here and say, this project's going to be $12,000, and we're going to have an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour debate, and everybody from each side who agrees with that project will be back in front of us, then we might as well make the determination ourselves.
Well, sounds like we have a lot of trust in you, doesn't it? So,
well, it's this
you're
whole,
welcome.
it's you and the group of people that are going to be convened. So, I think we want to see, that this decision was made not just by you and Jessica, but by, here's a direct reflection of the meetings that you guys have had, the issues discussed, and that people there have a consensus of how this should go.
Tony?
Just very briefly, when we talked about if there had been collaboration between the two main groups, BMA and Explore Bristol, believe me, we would not be having this conversation right now. Unfortunately, when I received the submission of their requests, they were requesting pretty much the same amount of money, which was right there, and it would have exceeded over $50,000 altogether. So with that, it was, the decision was made, we can't really grant it to one or the other, so we put into tourism dollars because they could not come to a consensus as to how they could collaborate and actually make things happen as they did previously. And it was very unfortunate because I agree with you. Had they done that, things would have moved on, and we would have, whether it would be Explore Bristol or BMA, certainly.
I think we understand how we got to this point. I think it's just, if we're going to try a new way, a new approach, we should just try a new approach,
See, for me, I'm in support of this, and I'm in support of this because if you look at the document that's in front of us, it spoke to the workshop, and it spoke to the people who attended the workshop, which are these groups, included with all the votes that were made, and it talked about where this money should go in a grand sense, which was marketing had the most votes, and longer season, focus on local and regional marketing, which was really interesting because the votes did not speak to what we heard out loud. The applications for the money and what actually came out of this workshop were two totally different things. And to me, that's okay. because I think it's wonderful that we have the interested parties together to come up with a unified decision. And I think that's what we're all saying. I do believe that this is a wonderful breakdown, but I think the breakdown was for us. So we understood each process point, but I don't think we need to look at this as bureaucracy. I think this was so we understood and had confidence that the process was a good one and that we could see the beginning, the middle, and the end. But as it pertains to decision-making process, I don't think it's going to be even close to this difficult. It'll be a unified decision and we move forward.
I think that the policy is just the top paragraphs, and I think it's like the town will sets aside X number of dollars, for the purpose of tourism, parentheses, maybe like $25,000 in fiscal year 2017, and blah, 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 you know what I mean? And then I would take out the paragraph about the $10,000 in excess, for at least for this year. And
I hear a motion, Mary.
And then the spending reports. That is my motion, yes. Okay,
I hear that motion. I heard that motion coming. Is there a second? Second. Is there a discussion in regards to that?
No, just that I'm in support of this policy. I think it's breaking down the silos and creating one silo for our tourism and marketing direction. So I think it's a good thing.
So I would say this, is that this council is very reasonable. So if after given a couple of years, not 1 year, but a couple of years of this, if it looks less than positive or it's not going in the direction that we were hoping for, we will review and we will make changes if necessary. So we have a motion and a second to approve striking the line about the in excess of $10,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from Councilman Stewart regarding the road program status and communication.
This is just a reminder. I know it's been a busy holiday with 4th of July. There's been a lot of traffic, and we had a meeting last week, Tony, myself, and the Director of Public Works, and the Director of Public Works has been out in the field with the two contractors. This is two separate contracts, one being Magnolia, Buttonwood, and Franklin, part of the state revolving fund, and then, of course, our road program on the outskirts of the north end of town off of Hope Street, where we will, try to confine those areas because of cost to keep the contractor and keep it smoothly. So everything's on a timeline. They're out in the field. I just want everyone to be aware of the traffic of these two projects going on at once. And towards the end of the summer, National Grid will be back in. And we did coordinate with National Grid to go curb to curb on the streets that were needed in tandem with them. If there were streets where you see that there's just half, again, we're just going to convey that it was assessed that the other half was in good condition, and the allocated funds right now will go towards the roads year after year, depending on the bond referendum going forward, towards the next sections that we're going to be working on. And also our director also has been involved with the other utility companies, such as BCWA, that whatever projects they have going forward, there is a coordination of the streets that are getting done this summer, that they're well aware that if they don't get on board now, that there's a 5-year clause that they can't dig up the road. So we've been in communication with them. So it's a busy summertime, and you're going to see a lot of paving and trucks. The one point I would like to clarify is the last project, many of the residents had concerns of the milling, and then the streets were left for a long period of time before the contractor came back and paved. That was a little glitch of time coordination with a state job. That's not going to be the case now. Our director and administrator have already been in communication with them of the time frame that it should be ample between the milling and the paving project. But we also would like feedback from the residents as usual, and just to keep you posted. That's why we're just updating. Thank you.
Can we have a receive and file?
Receive and file, Mr. Chair.
Second.
There's a motion to receive and file in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Councilman.
The next item also from Councilman Stewart regarding status of workshop schedule for renewable distributed energy alternative at Bristol landfill.
In the beginning of the year, the chairman and myself and the rest of our colleagues talked about in the past revisiting the landfill for the opportunity of solar or renewable energy opportunities. And then since then, between LED initiatives amongst my colleagues and the community development administrator, and also to have renewable energy in our town buildings, and having conversations with Diane, she is in the process of doing that to formulate something. But from that discussion, from meeting with the Energy Resource Department from Rhode Island, we had discussed about having a workshop to have more conversations of, where do we want to go, and what is the feasibility of the grid system coming into the landfill, and what are the opportunities for the funding mechanisms in tandem with those resources. So I just wanted to just remind everybody that if we can come together and formulate a workshop to have that conversation so we can move this forward and everybody's on the same page with all that's going on and involved with this. So that's why I put it on.
Which is actually, it was, as Councilman Stewart mentioned, he and I went to a meeting with the state to push this forward, going back about, it's about 6 months maybe, something like that, maybe a little bit longer at this point in time. This was something that had been worked on in the past, but kind of fell silent for a while, and he and I, and then ultimately all of us, felt there was a massive amount of value here to use the landfill that it's currently being used for nothing. And it's a way to keep the landfill safe, but also create a revenue generator with zero noise and zero impact to the neighbors, which is wonderful, and actually has a greater good too. Of course, we're creating renewable energy was the goal here. So we were motivated on this, and I say we is that the town ultimately is motivated. Diane, do you have an update on what's going on with what's going on with all this?
I do. And after you had, as you mentioned, met with the folks up at the state, I had reached out to them, and we had a couple of meetings with them. We are drafting an RFP for a public-private partnership for what they call on-site solar projects. And we had such success partnering with Barrington when we did the streetlight project that we wanted to do a bid in partnership with Barrington as well, and also with the Bristol Warren Regional School District. So I've drafted this. The state has reviewed it, given us comments back, and now I just have to pull the final touches together to get it out on the street. And I think there will be a lot of interest because I've had a lot of folks asking me when it's going to be released. So my goal is to get it done soon. I want to give you a date, but I have an internal goal of 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I said it out loud. There it is, 2 weeks.
And once that's done, then you think it would take probably another year, or?
Well, what we would do is we would put out on the street for interested vendors to bid on it. The state is telling us that we should give people at least 60 days because it takes a while to respond to one of these proposals, and you need to put a lot of effort into it. So once we then would get the bids back, we would review them and see which one is the best fit for the town to act on. So,
Also, on the intake of the infrastructure to get to the landfill, that's another assessment that we were discussed with on what type of grid we're going to have up at the landfill. How is it going to be in tandem with going forward with the municipal tie-in to the buildings? That's key to have that conversation also, what's going to be going into that landfill.
yeah, we did, if you recall, several years ago, we did do an RFP for solar installation at the landfill, and it was back, at the time, we made an application to the grid to sell the power, and we applied to 2 different auctions, and we were
Missed it by a penny or so?
Yeah, it was very close. So as you had said earlier, it sat for a while, and now we've resurrected it.
It's too important not to.
Absolutely, and it makes good sense.
Pat, did you want to add something?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, should I introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Mr. Solar Panel. Anyways, I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I saw that Councilman Stewart put this on the agenda, had it on the agenda. I would like to make myself available to this workshop group, primarily because in my tenure as the administrator of the Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources, we oversaw, in cooperation with the planners in the city of East Providence, at the time, largest solar panel field in New England. Contractor there was CME, One of the principals, by the way, is Kevin Stakem, famous name in these parts. And that project has worked out wonderfully for East Providence. And here in Bristol, a similar process can be followed. I think Diane's exactly on the right track. I hope CME bids on it if we get to that point in time. The latest evolution in renewable energy, it's kind of an interesting concept because it's now known as virtual RE. And basically what that means is, let's say we have a community, a subdevelopment, maybe even a town or a big city, what have you, who come together and actually purchase land in another location or lease land in another location. And with that, they become the owners who receive the benefit of the lower cost of energy vis-a-vis the solar field. This is the same concept. We own the land. Bristol owns the closed landfill. Once it's capped, sealed, and made a green space, that energy that's produced it goes to the grid. Electricity essentially cannot be stored. So it's produced, it's consumed via the grid. But the point is it can be directed for whatever specific public infrastructure need you would like. I'm a big fan of schools. Just taking the electric bill down at the schools as low as possible. You know, authorities can choose whatever means they would like, whichever bill they would like reduced. But the point is that it's available, and that landfill out there is just, I think it's ripe for development in this space.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
One that I found it really impressive is the one in Fall River by the industrial park. And because you see, like across from Rhode Island Novelty area, if you know that is, there's like a big one there. And I think that might be near the landfill. But then if you go to the back road of that industrial park, all the way down, I think, into Freetown, there's huge solar farm there.
Yeah,
and
a lot of the brownfields
yeah.
are now turning green.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great use for the land, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. What's your pleasure, Ed?
I believe we should schedule a workshop. I don't know if, given the schedule right now, or if maybe we can get back to Lou to schedule something by next meeting. That way everyone is accommodated.
That'd be great. So we have a motion to schedule a workshop in regards to this?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
What was the purpose of the workshop? I just wanted to ask, because she's still going to go out with the RFP, right? Okay.
I think for all of us to be better educated on the most recent changes, whatever's going on, and what opportunities are available to us.
It's more of a communication, too, not to take up so much time of the meeting, and then we can convey it in a better package to the residents once we have that communication done.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Clerk.
Next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, item J2. This is from the Chairman regarding the flashing school zone signs for Colt Andrews Elementary School located on Home Street and Gutierrez School located on Washington Street, with supporting documents provided, and you have a report from the Treasurer regarding funding.
So I spend an inordinate amount of time. I joke around sometimes that I'm the school flashing light guy at the State House, because I asked everybody. I went through our local legislators and worked with Department of DOT. The chief reached out through his department to similar people, and we had no success in getting the state to pay for this, and that just frustrated the heck out of me. This is too important for us to let go any longer. We looked for avenues for for funding through the state to no avail, and again, that really frustrates me. But we cannot let this go any longer. Our school on Colt Andrews on Hope Street it actually represents a large area, which would also encompass the library, the post office, a multitude of businesses, slow down cars going by there during the day, and it's going to slow down late moms and dads, too, so we should bring that out. So everybody's going to slow down on this. But this was too important to not take the next step on and get funding for this and get this done prior to the beginning of the new school year. I mentioned Colt Andrews, but this also includes Gutierrez School. Richard Ruggiero was in front of us about 6 months ago, and we committed that we would take care of that too, and I thought it was appropriate that this would just be an all-encompassing. As you can see, I reached out to Julie for a funding source on this, and our item included, her memorandum included where that money would come from. After speaking with the chief did some research in regards to dollars on this, and it should be no more than a total of $25,000 for all 3 lights. So there's 2 on Hope Street and 1 on Gutierrez. I don't believe it's going to be that much, but it was appropriate that we don't go back and forth with this. And the people that can install this are on the master price list for the state, so it would get done right away. We don't have to go out to bid and all of that. It can be done from the master price list. Chief, did you want to add anything on this? I know I did talk to the chief on this, and I said I thought it was very important to share with the residents that, I'm going to steal your line here, I know that you and your department will educate first, but they will enforce. This is not just flashing lights. This is a school zone where kids and moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas are walking around. Everybody's driven downtown in the morning and had somebody peek out between a car, and maybe we were all going a little bit too fast, and we will all be reminded of that. The chief was actually quick to point out that we will educate first, but then he and his department will then enforce it. And we don't want to enforce it in the sense of we don't want anybody to get a ticket. But it's important that we're all slowing down over there. There's too much pedestrian traffic and too many opportunities for somebody to get hurt. And before that happens, we need to get this done. And I ask the council's support that we get this funded and installed right away.
Chief, you're in support?
Yes, I'm in support of 100%. Rossi Electric is the state electric guru that does this. They came down, they assessed it, they gave us that ballpark figure number that you have in front of you. So it's more or less just getting the green light and trying to get them down here and get them to install it. I can't agree with the chairman anymore. I mean, we've had a lot of close calls. That is a heavy pedestrian area both on Hope Street and Washington, and as I always say, we don't want to put a price tag on anyone's life or an injury to whether it's a child or an elder person bringing their grandson or granddaughter to any one of those schools or in that immediate area where the library, the post office, we all know we travel at, and that is definitely a clear reminder when you have that flashing light there that people need to pay attention, and if they don't, as we stated, we're going to try to educate. That's where the schools are. We don't think we need to take them into the school, but we're going to educate them, and then we will enforce it, I assure you that. Okay?
Well, I'm a little dismayed because, as the chairman alluded to with the state's position on this, I know I went to the State Traffic Commission and they make their findings. I don't think you need more than a finding of a child's safety. But here in Bristol, this area, as you stated, Chief, multitude, and we all discussed this, of the accidents that take place, the congestion. There was many discussions on crosswalks. We have the crossing flags for safety. So these lights will just add to the downtown safety, not only for our children, but for our residents and pedestrians and visitors from afar. I think it's a good investment. Just for transparency, the state will install them, but we will maintain them. But through the school department, we have their authorization also in support of these 2 school zones. So with that said, my motion will be on the recommendation of the allocated costs from the treasurer to appropriate the funds to go forward with these flashing school zone signs for Andrews Elementary School on Hope Street and Gutierrez School on Washington Street.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I apologize, I skipped one thing. I did reach out to the superintendent, Dr. Mario Andrade, and he was in support in the past, and he continues to be in support. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item, thank you. Next items are various executive sessions, items L2, 3, and 4, and then we have from the solicitor information regarding the Bristol-Warren Regional School District litigation, that'd be L5.
I'll defer to the chairman in a second, but as you all know from my memo on Friday, July 1st, Judge Matos did agree to impose a stay on his order that the town of Bristol pay the school committee $1.4 million for the 2015-16 school year. He found that the burden and adverse effects on the taxpayers would be greater than the burden on the school committee not getting the funds right away, and he did rely in part upon the affidavit that we prepared for Julie in terms of how this would adversely affect the town. So something positive finally to report there. Obviously, now it'll be up to the Supreme Court to decide the merits and ultimately decide where this goes.
So I'd asked for this item because I thought it was important that the people of Bristol heard, and obviously my colleagues, all of us heard the same thing at the same time. What the solicitor obviously just said was the $1.4 million has nothing to do with the increase in the taxes that we currently pay. So said another way, if this had not been stayed, we would have had the $2.8 million that we were paying this year, plus an additional $1.4 million for the 2015. So the taxes went up this year. That's a very frustrating point for everybody that's sitting here, because the budget was a balanced one, and it would not have gone up without this litigation.
Right.
So it's a really important point, is that our taxes would have not gone up if not for this litigation. So this $1.4 million would have been additional to all of this. So there's a stay, and this was for previous year, as the solicitor pointed out, 2015. Our next step, and Mr. Solicitor, please stop me anywhere you disagree, is our next step is to go to Supreme Court to show that the town was not incorrect with what we've been doing, and that we have been paying our fair share, and we're being asked to pay for additional monies that we believe in unequivocally is the responsibility of Warren. Now, when I say the town of Warren, there's wonderful people in Warren. This is not downcasting anybody there, but we vehemently disagree with leadership, and in this particular instance, very much so. The people of Bristol need to know that we have not given up on this. We have a high likelihood of success, but nothing is guaranteed. We move forward, taking additional steps to find what other avenues are available to us. We believe that those tax increases are unfortunate. They were unnecessary, but necessary to comply with the judge's decision, which we will do, and we have done. But moving forward, our eyes are open to find alternatives to that, to find solutions to this, and we are looking at legal options on that. We work with state representatives. I went and had a meeting with the commissioner, and I wasn't going to say this, but I found that meeting to be, I'm choosing my words on that one. Yes, it was a very frustrating meeting, and it was unfortunate. It didn't need to be like that. But we'll continue to fight this battle, and I wanted you, my colleagues, and I all believe, and everyone sitting here believe, that this is a fight that we need to win about this. This is not a fight with Warren. This is a fight on this particular item, because there's other things that we agree on, our sister town. So I wanted to share that with anyone. Anybody want to add anything to that? No? Can I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next are the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
Happy 4th of July. My goodness, didn't we just start off saying this was a wonderful parade? 4th of July committee did a phenomenal job, but that's suggesting they haven't done a phenomenal job in the past. They always do a wonderful job. Our police department and the police departments that came in, and the federal departments that came in, and the ones that we see and the ones that we don't, kept us in a safe place, and we say thank you. Our fire department and first responders and rescue were there and did a wonderful job, as they always do. DPW, as I talked about with the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, making it look absolutely amazing when they're done. It's just absolutely tremendous. I had a couple people call me the next day and say, Did you look out there? Did you see what they did? It's amazing, absolutely tremendous. The participants in the parade, whether they were in the parade or the concerts or the Battle of the Bands the next day, were phenomenal. It was a joy to see everybody there. I got to tell you, I witnessed, and I think we all did, some wonderful homeowners, too. Some people who saw some really hot participants in the parade and ran out with a water or ran out with a hose to cool everybody off. And that's what we're about in Bristol, that kindness. And we very much are very fortunate of what we have. So my next item was dog poop. I know it just seems like a massive transition, doesn't it? I had a resident call me, and then I had another resident call me. We have an ordinance on the books that says you got to pick it up. So we have fines in place, and we can do all of that. But instead of going there, I'd ask everybody, if you got a dog, and I have a dog, to just pick up after your dog. And you can get a scooper, like I do, because I don't like to get too close to it. But you can get plastic bags and all of that stuff. Please, take a moment and be respectful to your neighbors. This is just a good neighbor thing. Take a moment and do what you need to do, if you wouldn't mind. Our website, I reached out to department heads, a few department heads and the administrator, is stagnant. It needs some updates. The pictures are wonderful that we got initially, but they need to be updated. We put a call out there to the people of Bristol to give us new pictures, and the call was responded to. We need to format those pictures into a size and width that fits on there, so you'll bear with us as we look into those options. But keep sending those pictures. I reached out to the 4th of July committee, and they're going to send us the first, second, and third places of their photo contest every year, so we'll get those on the website too. We have a $17 million bond referendum question coming up in November. We promised we would keep this top of mind to remind everybody that's money for open space, that's money for roads that need to be done, that's money for the marina out here that has been a particular focus of mine, but all of us, to be honest, which is a moneymaker for the town for both the generation of revenues for the slips, but also the people coming in and enjoying our town, whether they live in Bristol on that side and are now downtown or from someplace else. It's a wonderful opportunity for us. It does cost us money to do it, but ultimately it's a moneymaker. I talked about the 4th of July and all of that. Last thing I'll leave you with is, Diane, you and I spoke earlier about the streetlights. Could you give us all an update on where we are with the streetlights? We purchased them, or would you like me to ask the administrator? You got it.
We have signed the contract with National Grid for $40,000, unlike the $49,000 originally, and it was due to all the efforts, thanks to the police department, for verifying the inventory that was provided to us. So we actually got a reduction of $9,000 by the for the work that the third shift was able to do and verify the inventory that was provided to us. We also are in the process of, we have a contractor for maintenance of the lights. So going forward, Siemens will be the company that we'll be dealing with. So if any of I'm actually glad that we're talking about this, because if any of our residents have any issues going forward with any street light, they should be calling here at the town hall, my office, or DPW, either one of us, and we will be contacting Siemens to take care of those lights, whatever the issue may be. We're also working on we actually have a meeting tomorrow to talk about the conversion, to convert the lights from the current light system that we have to LEDs. Right now, the contract to maintain the lights will be approximately $40,000. Once we convert the lights, the maintenance contract will drop to $10,000. Obviously, we have to incur the cost of the conversion, but given a 2.5-year period, we'll be debt-free, and actually going forward after that will be approximately $200,000 savings that we'll have with the 2.5 years going forward. The other piece that we have is also the lights in town, the decorative lights. Those also will be addressing those as well. That's part of the contract for conversion.
Spectacular.
So that's where we are right now, but some good things are happening right now. And yes, we are in ownership of all the Cobra lights.
Thank you. So I'll leave you with this. My colleagues on the council, the administrator, the clerk, and every town employee very proud to be where we are, and we thank you, and we're proud to be out there. And when people say to us, so where are you from? And I say Bristol, and they, ooh, Bristol. Why? Because we have a wonderful, wonderful neighborhoods and people and homeowners and people who care. And whether that's a board or commissioner, elected official or otherwise, we're very proud to be here, and we say thank you. So, happy 4th.
Mr. Sweeney.
We talk about a class act. This town is to the top with the 4th of July parade. I got a call from my cousin out in California, and he was just saying, I'm watching the parade on TV, and oh my God, I miss Bristol so much. I can't wait to get back there. I hope I'm saving up my money for my tickets to get back. But really, the day was beautiful. We had a great time. I got tons of compliments in regards to how the parade flowed, and it was great to walk with my colleagues. We always have a good time. It was really, really fun. But Diane, I do have a couple of residences are down by the waterfront asking about that Esvito's property and where we're going in the direction. So maybe at the next meeting we could have like a little bit of an update of where we're going on that. But maybe that's something I don't want to put you on the spot. You can come back on that because.
We're planning to bring back to you.
Oh, fantastic.
Perfect. That's correct.
And just finally, I would just wanted to remind everybody about the Cool Jazz tickets at Mount Hope Farm. They're going fast, so I just wanted to let everybody know it's on August 7th, and please go out to mounthopfarm.org for your tickets. It's a great night of dancing, raw bar. There is a lobsters. It's just a wonderful night of dancing. Good time down at Mount Hope Farm. Have a good night. Thanks a lot.
Ms. Perella.
Yes, a couple of things. I would echo the chairman's comments about the 4th of July celebration and to compliment everyone involved, certainly the 4th of July committee who worked tirelessly and started off the calendar year with some controversy, but it all worked out really well, and it just seemed like a remarkable parade with very few gaps from what I could see and from what I heard. Certainly DPW, I've lived in this neighborhood for many, 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 many years on the parade route, and it's always remarkable to see, especially in years past where there were no trash bags put up at one point. Do you remember that? And everything was everywhere, and then, like magic, it would be all gone in the morning. And it still is that way, and they just deserve such an amount of credit, and everybody, I hope, got a lot of rest, actually, after the 4th. I know the sewer department sometimes gets left out, and they say, well, we've had an abundance of visitors, so to that department, fire and rescue, and it was a hot day, and a lot of people were, overcome with the heat, and the system that you've put in place with the EMS workers on the bikes, and then the various comfort stations and the fire department headquarters seems to really be working well, and certainly, but not least, is maybe most importantly, and to our security, is the police department. Is just remarkable, and I saw the chief and Colonel O'Donnell down on Thames Street the night before the 4th. I was somewhat surprised to see, but understand why they were there. The barricades on High Street near Bradford on the morning, 4th of July morning when I was walking down to the exercises. And it is a remarkable feat that you gentlemen have with, all the departments that you bring together. When I see the number of people down at the concerts every night, and the night before the 4th without the band, the Battle of the Bands, I was having a breakdown. I was like a nervous wreck down there, not because of anything like that, just overwhelming number of people. And when you take into account everything that's been going on in the world, I mean, my hat's off to all of you for such a remarkable job in keeping us safe and so many undercover people. I know that there are many people there, and someday I need to ask the chief. I think about it late at night thinking, I wonder how many people there really were on any one of those given days. So thank you all very, very, very much. And then I'd just like to make note that Our Lady of Mount Carmel Festival will be taking place on the Thursday night, the 14th, which is just a handful of food items. Father Zeno's lasagna and a few specialty items are for sale that night. And then the games and the whole food and everything else for the festival opens on Friday, the 15th, 16th, and 17th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's always a good time. Takes us right into the middle of July, which is hard to believe that we just started it and we're in the middle. and Pat McCarthy and his wife Nina Squatrina McCarthy, Pat was here a little bit earlier, the chief marshals for that event, and well-deserved for the work that they've done over many, many years for Mount Carmel. So I just wanted to make mention of that. I think, and one last thing on the dog debris, let's call it that. That's been an ongoing issue, and the only thing I would just ask, and I'll be happy to take some pictures when I come across them, but many nice communities such as ours that we go to have some dispensers, and they're pretty tastefully done around parks, or at least signs as reminders, and I think we might need to do that, because no matter how hard, I can't begin to say how many shoes I've ruined because many people come downtown to walk their dogs, and they don't always clean up after them. So with that, thank you very much, and enjoy July, because I don't think we have a meeting until the very end, right?
26th.
Mr. Stewart. So before I make my comments about 4th of July, I'd just like to extend condolences to the DePont family of the passing of Thomas DePont. He was a former state senator, former Bristol town councilman, and former Bristol school committee member, and he was very active in a lot of organizations here in the town of Bristol. So we just extend our condolences to his family on his passing. With that, as 4th of July, and my colleagues have stated, acknowledging the Bristol 4th of July Committee, we should do a commercial for them because they're always looking for new volunteers. It's a commitment, and it's very rewarding. It's a great group of people, and they start right after 4th of July. So it's a year-long commitment away from their families, so we commend them. But in tandem with that, as we acknowledge the police department, the state police, the armed forces, Department of Public Works, our public safety and fire, and also our harbor master and his men on the waters during the fireworks and protecting the waters in that type of manner. It is a privilege and honor to be invited, along with my colleagues, every year to walk in the parade. And it's a privilege just to walk, and I could not be more prouder when I walk the red, white, and blue here in our town to see all our residents and everybody involved saluting our military. And we have to be mindful, especially as Councilwoman Perella said, in today's day and age, that we should not only salute them on 4th of July, but salute them every day going forward. And it was a great opportunity to welcome Commander Sean Bailey and his crew from the USS Arlington. We got to be on board to experience in that. But again, to our armed forces and to all the residents who make this happen with their watchful eye, because I know they're very proud to continue this tradition going forward. With that said, the concerts, Michael, I believe after this 4th of July ends, we have concerts on the Common. They usually start, is it this Thursday or the following Thursday? So it's the following Thursday when Father Zeno does his lasagna, I believe. Yes, yeah. So the 14th. You can enjoy every Thursday concerts on the Common. Another beautiful thing that we provide here in town, not only for our residents, but for their family and visitors. Also, I saw the shuttle run from Providence to Newport that's going to be going with the RIPTA bus shuttle, which I think is a great venue for people to get to Newport. And they also had mentioned to other municipalities that might be interested to have conversations with RIPTA. If it's feasible, they might be open to opportunities to open another stop. What would be more ideal than right in the middle of the hour-long run from Providence to Newport than Bristol? I had a conversation with the harbor master. I think that conversation has to take place also at Walter, whether it be Cope Park or whether it be right here in our marina with our new Maritime Center. Speaking of the Maritime Center, we have the official ribbon cutting next Thursday at 4 on the 14th. So you can go to ribbon cutting at 4 and then have a bite to eat and then go to a concert on the Common or go to the feast that night. So that's a very active day. But with that said, I will probably put it on the agenda next meeting after the discussion takes place with the administrator, the harbor master, and the director of Parks and Recreation to see if it's feasible, because it would be a great opportunity for even our seniors as groups to have that opportunity to get on a shuttle and get a nice ferry ride down to Newport, enjoy the day, and also a convenient way for our residents to just to jump up on the boat instead of driving and dealing with the car traffic. With that said, thank you, Mike Davis, Archie Martins, and again, I wish everybody a happy 4th with you and your families and everyone who came in from afar, and have a good night. Thank you.
Mr. Harasoff.
Well, all my colleagues have done a great job in eloquently expressing the satisfaction we all have in how good this 4th of July was. And I think I have to do the same thing. Because somehow this year everything clicked together. Great weather. The parade was good. It was a little shorter. We missed some of the extra drum and bugle corps, but the music was good. And wasn't that Navy contingent fantastic, led by Admiral Howe of the Naval War College in Newport, and the captain of the ship that visited, and all those officers and sailors and midshipmen. It was fantastic. And I like to explain to visitors who come to Bristol, and many of them are astounded how fine our 4th of July is. I said to several of them, you know, this 4th of July is not only our greatest day in the town of Bristol, Rhode Island, USA, but also what we do between Flag Day and 4th of July and in the preparations, in many respects, sets a mark for the entire year and the entire activities of the town of Bristol. I think it's behind the magnificent volunteerism that we have. I think it's behind the patriotism that we have. I think it's behind so much of the virtues in how our departments, our government, and our citizens operate. So we're fortunate for July 4th each year, but we're also fortunate for the fallout from that all through the rest of the year. And you can't help but go through a day like we went through without having not only huge pride in the United States of America, but huge pride in the town of Bristol. And I think that it's here to stay, and I hope that every year can be as outstanding and wonderful as this particular year was. For myself, it was a great thrill to march in the parade, and I observed, as I think others did, that the crowd was even bigger than usual. And that was particularly true, I thought, in the section from the beginning of the parade down to Papa Squash Road. And you'll remember that in early January was the part of the parade that was proposed to be eliminated. Well, maybe this proves that Bristol people don't want to lose good things, and because they might have lost that, they all came out, and the crowd was all the way from the curbing right to the porches and back. So that's fine. We want everybody to be as exuberant and super happy as they were this year. So good on Bristol, and let's remember it all year long. Thank you.
Town Administrator, agenda items.
The first thing I would like to thank is our residents for their cooperation. It was wonderful to walk around or ride around in part of the day and to see how much folks were doing just to beautify the town, but also comply with all the ordinances. And obviously it made it a lot easier for the parade itself. They were very vigilant and aware of their surroundings, and that was very helpful, especially for our security forces. As it was already pointed out with all the departments, I can't restate enough, as well as you've already done, but I did have a chance to spend a little more time with Chief Canario because of some of the things that you heard on radio and what went on, and we are very fortunate that none of those things came through. But I can tell you it was not just by luck, it was the fact that there was a lot of effort put into it, and the coordination by the chief and the many other resources that he was able to gather and gather the support from. So with that being said, it was well done. I know that at 5 o'clock on the 4th, Chief and I was on the phone with both chiefs, and it was like, we made it through. Now let's enjoy the rest of the day. And obviously, it was great effort made by all the departments, so we're very appreciative for all of that. With that being said, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mike?
With regard to executive session, we've already addressed item number 1, so the motion would be to adjourn to executive session, to convene rather to executive session pursuant to 42465A2 litigation relative to Mosaico, Clipboard Inc., and Bristol Warren Regional School District.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, everyone.